What if I told you that the most popular fruit tree in America is also the most difficult, most expensive, and most frustrating tree you could possibly plant? Every spring, millions of people walk into nurseries and buy apple trees because that's what we do. That's what our neighbors do. That's what the nursery brochure tells us to do. But here is what those nurseries will never tell you. Apple trees require more spraying, more pruning, more disease management, and more babysitting than almost any other fruit in the entire home orchard world. Codling moth, fire blight, apple scab, cedar apple rust. The list of enemies is longer than your arm. Meanwhile, there are 13 other fruit trees, trees that your great-grandparents knew about, that produce more fruit than apples, with a fraction of the problems. Trees that bear fruit in 2 years instead of 5, trees that laugh at disease, trees that thrive on neglect. One tree on this list, one single tree, produces over 600 pounds of fruit in a single season while requiring almost zero maintenance. And tree number 12 on this list, the tree that fed the entire silkworm industry across Asia for over 4,000 years, is so productive that farmers would shake the branches and collect pounds of berries in minutes. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at your backyard the same way again. I'm going to show you 13 fruit trees that are more productive than apple, that almost nobody plants. Starting now. Welcome to my channel where we dig up forgotten solutions that modern industry buried. If you believe nature already solved the problems that corporations are selling back to us, then you are in exactly the right place. Hit subscribe and drop a comment right now telling me which fruit tree has disappointed you the most. I'm willing to bet apples are going to dominate that comment section. Now, let's get into the list. Tree number 13, serviceberry, the native survivor. You might know this tree as Juneberry, or Saskatoonberry, depending on where you live. But whatever you call it, serviceberry is one of the most underrated productive trees in North America. Native Americans relied on these berries for thousands of years, drying them, combining them with meat and fat to create pemmican, the original survival food that sustained entire communities through brutal winters. Here is what makes serviceberry remarkable for the home orchard. It grows in zones 2 through 9, the widest climate range of any tree on this list. From the Canadian boreal forest all the way down to Alabama, this native survivor produces without complaint. The berries taste like blueberries crossed with almonds and contain higher antioxidant levels than commercial blueberries. A mature multi-stemmed plant produces 15 to 25 pounds of fruit annually. Zero spray required. No fire blight, no coddling moth, no scab. Full sun to partial shade. Almost any soil type. The only competition? Birds. Pick when berries turn deep purple and beat the birds to the harvest. For anyone tired of fighting apple diseases, serviceberry is the native survivor that produces reliably from Zone 2 to Zone 9 with zero chemicals. So tree number 12, mulberry, the 600-pound producer. This is not a typo. A mature mulberry tree can produce 300 to 600 pounds of fruit in a single season. The silkworm industry cultivated mulberry trees across Asia for over 4,000 years. Not because the silkworms needed them, but because nothing else grew so reliably, so abundantly, with so little care. The trees thrive in zones 4 through 9. The Illinois everbearing variety survives temperatures of minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit. They require almost no care once established. The fruit ripens over 6 to 8 weeks rather than all at once, extending your harvest season dramatically. And the harvest method? You lay a tarp under the tree, shake the branches, and collect pounds of berries in minutes. Mulberries taste like blackberries crossed with honey. They work in pies, wine, jams. All smoothies, everything, no spraying, no disease management. Birds will take some, but when your tree produces 600 pounds, there is plenty for everyone. Tree number 11, American persimmon. The divine fruit. The Latin name for persimmon is Diospyros, which translates to food of the gods. Once you taste a fully ripe American persimmon, you will understand exactly why the ancient Greeks chose that name. Captain John Smith, of Pocahontas and Jamestown fame, wrote about persimmons in 1607, noting that colonial settlers prized them above all other native fruits. This was a man who knew starvation, and he called persimmons the most prized fruit in the New World. Here is what makes American persimmon ideal for low-maintenance orchards. The trees grow in zones 4 to 9, tolerating cold that kills most other fruit trees. They thrive in poor soil and drought conditions that would stress any other orchard tree. A mature tree produces 35 to 75 pounds of fruit annually with zero spray required. 0. The key is patience. Persimmons are aggressively astringent, mouth-puckeringly so, until fully ripe. But once that moment arrives, sweet as honey with notes of apricot, brown sugar, and warm caramel. Harvest after the fruit softens, or wait for it to drop naturally. The fruit dries beautifully for year-round storage. Tree number 10, Asian pear, the apple alternative. If you love the crisp, juicy crunch of apples, but you are exhausted by the diseases, the spray schedules, and the endless babysitting they require, then Asian pear is your answer. Cultivated in Asia for over 3,000 years, Asian pears produce fruit with the satisfying crunch of an apple combined with the juicy sweetness of a pear. It is the best of both worlds on a more productive and more disease-resistant tree. A mature, standard-sized tree produces 150 to 300 pounds of fruit annually. That is double to triple what a mature apple tree typically produces. They grow in zones 5 through 9, with some cold, hardy varieties surviving zone 4 winters. Asian pears suffer dramatically fewer pest and disease problems than apples growing in the same orchard, in the same soil, under the same conditions. The fruit stores for months under refrigeration while maintaining that crisp, snappy texture. Trees begin bearing fruit in 3 to 4 years, compared to the 5 to 7 years apples require. Plant 2 different varieties for cross-pollination. See thin fruit aggressively for maximum size. These trees will live 50 years or more with basic care. Tree number 9, Jujube, the drought champion. The Chinese have cultivated jujube for over 4,000 years, and they gave it a title that says everything about why. The poor man's fruit. Because anyone can grow it, regardless of skill, regardless of soil quality, regardless of how little water they have. These trees tolerate heat, drought, and poor alkaline soil that would kill most fruit trees. Once established, they require almost no irrigation, even in desert conditions where temperatures exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. A mature jujube tree produces 40 to 100 pounds of fruit annually while basically ignoring you. The flavor is remarkable, like a sweet apple when eaten fresh, and like a rich, complex medjool date when dried. See, most varieties are self-fertile, meaning you need just one tree to get a full harvest. Jujubes grow in zones 5 to 10, covering the vast majority of the United States. Here is the detail that makes jujube nearly pest-free. Virtually no American insects have evolved to recognize jujube as food. They grow up untouched, the dried fruit stores for years without refrigeration. This tree was a survival food across entire civilizations, and it can be yours with almost zero effort. Tree number 8, quince. The golden apple of mythology. When ancient Greek mythology speaks of golden apples, the fruit at the center of the Trojan War, the prize of the Hesperides, the gift of Aphrodite herself. Most classical scholars believe they were not referring to the apple as we know it today. They were describing this fruit, the quince. This ancient fruit fed Mediterranean civilizations for thousands of years before the modern food industry decided it was inconvenient and quietly let it fall out of fashion. Here is why quince deserves an urgent resurrection in modern orchards. The trees produce 50 to 100 pounds of intensely aromatic fruit annually. They grow in zones 5 through 9. And here is the critical detail. Quince is naturally resistant to fire blight, the devastating bacterial disease that can wipe out an entire apple or pear orchard in a single season. Yes, quince cannot be eaten raw, but transformed through cooking, it becomes the most extraordinary jelly, paste, and roasted fruit you have ever tasted. One quince will perfume an entire room for weeks. The fragrance alone is worth planting one. The trees are stunning ornamentals, all producing beautiful pink-tinged white flowers each spring, almost zero spraying, minimal pruning. Tree number 7, elderberry. The immune booster Hippocrates, the father of medicine himself, called the elder tree his medicine chest. European folk healers relied on elderberry for over 2,000 years to support immune health through cold and flu season. Modern science has caught up with ancient wisdom. Clinical studies now confirm the compounds in elderberry that support immune response, the same compounds our great-grandmothers were making into syrup every autumn without needing a research paper to tell them why. But here is what the supplement industry hopes you never discover. Elderberry is extraordinarily easy to grow yourself. These are not trees. They are fast-growing shrubs that reach 8 to 12 feet in a single growing season. So each plant produces 12 to 15 pounds of berries annually, which translates to gallons of homemade elderberry syrup. Zero spray. Virtually no pest problems. Plants establish quickly and begin producing in year 2. Important safety note, elderberries must be cooked before consumption. Raw berries can cause stomach upset. Cook them down into syrup, jam, or wine. Plant multiple varieties for cross-pollination. Net the plants before birds strip them clean. This is the tree that pays you back in both food and medicine. Tree number 6, pawpaw. The American tropical George Washington loved pawpaws. Thomas Jefferson grew them at Monticello. Lewis and Clark survived on pawpaws during their expedition when other food ran out. This Native American tree produces fruit that tastes like tropical custard, with mango, banana, and vanilla notes, despite growing in the cold temperate climate of eastern North America. It is the largest edible fruit native to the entire North American continent, and almost nobody grows it. Here is why pawpaw deserves urgent attention in modern gardens. The trees produce 25 to 50 pounds of fruit annually once mature. They grow in zones 5 through 9, thriving naturally in the forest understory. Pawpaw has zero significant pest problems because no native North American insects have evolved to attack it. This is an evolutionary miracle sitting in our own backyard. The fruit does not ship well, it bruises easily and has a short shelf life. This is exactly why grocery stores ignore it. But for home growers who can eat it fresh from the tree, that is a feature, not a problem. You need 2 different varieties for cross-pollination. Young trees prefer partial shade while establishing. The flavor is unlike anything else you can grow in a temperate climate. The founding fathers knew what they were doing. It is time to reclaim it. Tree number 5, medlar, the medieval treasure. Shakespeare mentioned medlars in his plays. Geoffrey Chaucer wrote about them in the Canterbury Tales. Medieval Europeans considered medlar trees essential to any proper garden, as fundamental as a vegetable patch or a herb garden. Then the 20th century arrived with its supermarkets and its standardized produce. and we simply forgot this fruit existed. That ends today. Medlar trees produce 20 to 40 pounds of fruit annually while requiring almost nothing from you. They grow in zones 4 through 8, tolerating cold winters and variable soil types with remarkable resilience. And here is something extraordinary. Medlar is completely pest and disease-free in modern gardens. Not low maintenance, zero maintenance pest management. The fruit requires a process called bletting. You let it soften after harvest, sometimes for weeks, until the flesh turns brown and creamy inside. This sounds deeply strange until you taste it. Properly bletted medlar tastes like spiced apple butter, with hints of wine, honey, and warm autumn spices. It is one of the most complex, sophisticated flavors in the entire fruit world. The trees themselves are spectacular ornamentals, beautiful white flowers in spring, attractive spreading form, stunning autumn color. You are getting a landscape tree and a productive fruit tree in one. A fruit that Shakespeare wrote about deserves to be in your garden. A tree number 4, Cornelian cherry, the earliest bloomer. Despite its name, Cornelian cherry is not actually a cherry, it is a dogwood, a member of the Cornus family, and it holds a title no other fruit-bearing tree can claim. It blooms in February or March, before forsythia, before crocuses, before anything else signals that winter is finally ending. When the entire landscape is still gray and frozen, Cornelian cherry explodes into masses of brilliant yellow flowers, announcing spring to the whole neighborhood. And then it produces fruit. Each mature tree produces 20 to 40 pounds of tart, jewel-red fruit, perfect for jams, syrups, fruit leather, liqueurs, and savory sauces. The flavor is like a sour cherry crossed with a cranberry, intensely fruity and wonderfully complex. These trees grow in zones 4 through 8 and tolerate clay soil, urban air pollution, and difficult conditions that frustrate other fruit trees. Cornelian cherry is extremely disease-resistant, requiring no spray. The ornamental value alone, the exfoliating bark, the spectacular late-winter bloom, the autumn berry display, would justify planting one even if it never produced a single fruit. But it produces 40 pounds, annually, for decades. Tree number 3, Che, Chinese mulberry, the secret producer. Also known as Chinese mulberry or kudrang, Che is a tree that exists almost entirely outside the awareness of mainstream horticulture. If you mention it at a garden center, the staff will look at you blankly. That obscurity is about to end. Che trees produce 50 to 100 pounds of fruit annually, rivaling the legendary mulberry in pure productivity. They grow in zones 5 through 9, tolerating a wide range of growing conditions with remarkable adaptability. The flavor is extraordinary, like watermelon crossed with fig, sweet, rich, unusual, and unlike absolutely anything else you can grow in a temperate orchard. It is a flavor experience that stops people in their tracks. And here is the pest situation. 0. None. American insects do not recognize Che as food. It evolved on the other side of the planet. The tree grows completely unbothered. No spraying, no disease management, minimal pruning. Some varieties have thorns that deter deer, but thornless cultivars exist for gardeners who prefer them. Serious fruit collectors and permaculture designers are discovering Che right now. You have the opportunity to be ahead of the curve on one of the most productive fruit trees most people will never know about. Tree number 2, fig, the 11,000-year producer. Archaeological evidence now suggests that humans cultivated figs before wheat, before barley, before any grain crop in human history. 11,000 years ago, in what is now the Jordan Valley, people were deliberately planting and tending fig trees. Before civilization as we know it existed, there were figs. Thomas Jefferson called figs his absolute favorite fruit. Ancient Olympians were fed figs as their primary training food. The Bible mentions figs more than any other fruit. Here is why the fig remains completely unmatched for home production in the modern era. Fig trees produce 50 to 100 pounds of fruit annually, with some varieties producing 2 separate crops per year, a small early crop in summer and a main crop in late summer through autumn. Cold hardy varieties like Chicago Hardy can survive Zone 5 winters by dying back to the roots and regrowing each spring with extraordinary vigor. Figs grow beautifully in large containers, which means gardeners in any climate, even Zone 3, can grow figs by bringing the containers inside for winter. They require no cross-pollinator. Common fig varieties are entirely self-fertile. One tree is all you need for a full harvest. Virtually no pest or disease problems in home gardens. Trees begin producing fruit in year 2 after planting. 11,000 years of cultivation. And still the most productive, most reliable, most magical fruit tree you can plant in your backyard today. Tree number 1. Mulberry, the complete package, the undisputed champion. I placed mulberry at number 12 earlier in this list because the rankings were based purely on production numbers compared to the others. But mulberry belongs here, at number 1, for what it offers the home orchardist in totality, because no other tree on this planet matches mulberry for the complete combination of productivity, adaptability, and zero maintenance. Let me give you the full picture. 600 pounds of fruit from a single mature tree. Not 60 pounds. 600. That is not a tree. That is a fruit production facility that runs itself. Adaptable from Zone 4 through 9. Covering 80% of the United States. No spray schedule. No fire blight. No codling moth. No scab. No fungal diseases. No bacterial rots. The fruit ripens over 6 to 8 weeks rather than a narrow window of days, dramatically extending your eating season and reducing harvest pressure. Self-fertile, one tree produces abundantly without any cross-pollinator needed. Propagates from simple cuttings. You can share trees with every neighbor, every friend, every family member from a single established tree at almost zero cost. And here is the truth that the industry buried. The reason nurseries do not push mulberry trees is that you buy one tree and you never need their spray chemicals again. You never need their pest management programs. You never need their disease treatments. The mulberry makes the entire chemical industry irrelevant to your fruit production. That is exactly, precisely, 100% the reason you should plant one. These 13 trees represent fruit-growing wisdom that the chemical industry spent decades quietly burying. Your great-grandparents grew persimmons, mulberries, quinces, and pawpaws, not because they were exotic or adventurous, because these trees produced, reliably, year after year, without purchased inputs, without spray schedules, without an agronomist on speed dial. Then chemical companies arrived with a proposition. Your old boring trees are primitive. We have modern varieties, improved apples, improved pears, that produce better fruit. And to keep those improved varieties healthy, you just need to buy these 14 chemicals and follow this 47-step spray calendar and call us when something goes wrong, which it will regularly. And within a generation, everyone was planting apple trees. You do not need apple trees. You never did. The trees on this list have been feeding families for thousands, in some cases tens of thousands, of years. They were not popular because early humans were less sophisticated than us. They were popular because they worked. Here is your action plan. Pick 2 or 3 trees from this list that match your climate and your taste preferences. Order bare root stock this coming winter when prices are lowest and root disturbance is minimal. Plant in early spring. By the 3rd year, you will have more fruit than you can eat. By the 5th year, you will be giving bags of fruit away to your neighbors. By the 10th year, your trees will be a family landmark. These trees are ready to feed your family the way they have been feeding families for millennia. The only question left is, which one are you planting first? If this video showed you what the nurseries will never mention, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment below telling me which tree from this list you are planting first. I read every single comment, and if you know someone who just bought an apple tree and is already frustrated, send them this video. Let's get these trees back in the ground where they belong. I'll see you in the next one.